Now we move on to our next news. The European Commission has denied claims that its pledge to boost U.S. fossil fuel imports undermines climate goals. The $750 billion deal includes liquefied natural gas, oil, and nuclear fuel from the U.S., aimed at replacing Russian energy. Brussels says the move ensures energy security and does not derail its plan to become carbon neutral by 2050. EU spokesperson Anna-Kaisa said the agreement aligns with the bloc's long-term decarbonization targets. The deal comes amid rising concerns from climate groups, who warn it could delay clean energy efforts, but EU officials insist the transition remains on track. Let's have a look at what the EU spokesperson had to say.
The political agreement reached on Sunday concerns the 3 next years. So the ambition for increased energy imports and investment from the United States only covers the next 3 years. Our decarbonization policies go much beyond. So this agreement does not contradict our medium to long-term decarbonization objectives or targets at all.
Now we are joined by guest for this discussion, Shruti Das Gupta. She's an international affairs expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you, Shruti, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, how do you assess this delicate balancing act between EU saying that they are supporting U.S. with exporting or importing these U.S. energy, while their ambitions of carbon neutrality seems different and far away?
Greetings, Asuma. Thank you for inviting me. Well, I call what this deal as a fantasy deal because they have only tried to push the devil back into its cage, and herein being the U.S. tariffs. Like many other nations who are making energy deals with U.S. To have U.S. tariff wars not play up to their disadvantage, EU has done the very same thing. They've only made a deal for 3 years. The details of it is still not known, but to expect that it is going to be $250 billion every year for the next 3 years in US energy exports, it would be comical as well as fantastical in nature. Basically because it would have, the EU already takes about 40% of its liquefied natural gas from US, and it also takes about 15% of its petrol products from the petroleum products, from oil products from the US. To scale up to that level, they would have to have a massive investment in shipping, in refineries, and EU in its own can only define, is not a legal body to enforce trade. So private companies cannot be forced to abide by what the deals that EU has made on its terms. So it is going to be, it's really a fantasy just to make the optics of Trump look better, and EU to avoid the giant 30% trade tariffs that was being threatened and shoveled down its throat. So it's a fantasy trade. It is not going to go through, and the climate activists are, of course, unhappy about it because it does derail their plans, or at least delayed it by 3 years. But the 2050 clean energy project, for that, it would be a minor hiccup.
And Shruti, now climate activists have raised concerns that this fossil fuel deal might slow the EU's clean energy efforts. So do you think their criticisms are valid?
Their goal, the climate activists' goal, and as well as all the other EU policies up till now, including of green energy as well as green cars, green tech, has been very unidirectional and forceful, not only for the people who are manufacturing in EU, but the people who do trade with EU. They have to abide by these laws. So when you make a deal which is petro-specific with the US, that means you're ready to pull back on those policies as well. You're going to become more carbon heavy in terms of your energy. It might give you a chance to break away from dependence on Russia, but as it is since 2022 to now, the dependence on Russia has been greatly reduced. I think I have the numbers here somewhere. Last year they did only about 23 billion euros worth of energy trade with Moscow. So it looks as if the deal where the climate enthusiasts are saying that this is not good. Of course it is not good, but this it is only for 3 years. So it is a hiccup, as I said before, but the ultimate goal would be something else, that is the clean energy. The policies are designed that way. They cannot force refineries to buy from US despite signing this deal. Hence, there is a lot of ambiguity of how this exact trade is going to go through in the next 3 years. So it is more of optics. You should, if the climate activists follow all of this without a word, of course their concerns will be rubbish. The more noise they make, the lesser likely it is that the EU is forcing this trade down the throats of private companies.
And Shruti, now, how do you see this tension affecting global climate diplomacy, particularly with countries that look up to EU for their actions towards green energy and energy transitions?
So energy transition, EU is the leader in terms of energy transition. It holds all other nations accountable by setting its own standards very high. When they do make a carbon heavy deal, it sends bad signals. It allows other nations to bypass this just so that they can get away with their carbon emissions and carbon footprint. And of course, it looks bad on EU itself. That is why I said it is more of a fantasy deal, because it is not just about how you make your energy security or how you deal with Trump. It is about a global entire infrastructure that is going to turn around and point fingers at EU and say, you did it, so why can't we? So all the other nations would be very happy with this, because it makes them have a breathing space as far as the climate emissions are and controls are concerned. So EU is in a tough spot, and I wonder how they'll wriggle out of this one.
Yes, we'll be watching that. Thank you very much, Shruti Dasgupta. Always nice hearing from you, your perspective as international affairs expert. Now we move on to our next news. A massive wildfire is raging near the village of Canelas in Portugal's Arouca region. With 500 firefighters deployed to the battle, the blaze that erupted on Monday. As temperatures soared to 33 degrees Celsius, local residents like Rafael Soros say it's heartbreaking to watch the destruction and are calling for urgent aid support. The region has seen devastation before. In September 2024, over 6,000 hectares were lost in fire in nearby Alvarenga. Authorities are racing to prevent a repeat of that disaster. Well, that's all we have time